This is Air Filter 101 Part 2. We're going to look at actual air filter models, which ones you should probably avoid, and which ones are awesome for you to get, so let's break it down. Part 1 is linked below. I went really in-depth on the science of air filters. I just filmed this whole video, and I went really in-depth again, so there's probably going to be a Part 3 summarizing all this, but here's in-depth breakdowns and comparisons of a bunch of different air filters. If you type air filter into Amazon, you're going to get ads for things like the Puro Air, or even Amazon's overall pick, the AeroWeave. Let's break those down. They're actually not good ones to get, and I'll show why. I'm going to use these cards to compare a bunch of different models. So first, let's look at the AeroWeave and use it as an example for each one of these stats. So the first is CADR, clean air delivery rate, measured in cubic feet per minute. This is really just how much air can this thing process? How much air can it clean every single minute? We see the AeroWeave can clean 25 cubic feet per minute, which is not very good. You'll see other air filters we cover can filter 100 cubic feet per minute, 200, 300. So this is pretty weak, and it makes sense. It only costs $45. Now, in the previous video, I mentioned that you want 6 air changes an hour. Ideally, that's the best for health, to make sure that about every 10 minutes you're breathing in completely fresh air. We can see this unit in a large living room, 2,000 cubic feet. You'd only get 0.7 air changes an hour, way short of the 6 you'd want. So this is not built for a living room, but it's not even clear to me what room this would be helpful in. One trick is you can multiply the cubic feet per minute by 10, and that tells you the size of the room that the air filter can clean well. That would be a 5 by 5 by 10 room. That would be like a little bigger than a phone booth. Now also look at the noise. 60 decibels is really loud. I'm going to do a whole separate video on noise, but 50 decibels is really a cutoff. Anything above 50 is pretty annoying and noticeable. 40 to 50 is even a big range, but that's kind of reasonable noise, and below 40 is quiet, awesome. We're going to see some that are below 40, and a lot of the good ones are somewhere between 40 to 50. So anyway, this you're spending not a lot of money, but it's very noisy, it's not cleaning very much. And the only other stats here, this cubic feet per minute divided by the purchase cost, that's basically how much can it clean versus how much it costs to buy the thing. And a similar stat is the 5-year operating cost, which is the initial purchase and changing the filters every 6 months for 5 years. Those numbers by themselves, the 0.55 and 0.15, don't really mean anything other than you can compare other units. So every other unit you'll see as we march through this, they should get more and more efficient. The cubic feet per minute over 5-year operating cost, this one is 0.15, which is not very good. The best ones I'm going to recommend are around 0.5, 0.6, like 3 to 4 times more efficient. So here's that Puro Air that was the sponsor recommendation. This one, 128 cubic feet per minute, so that's over 4 times more powerful than the last one we just looked at. You can get almost 4 air changes in that living room. That's reasonable, but again, look at the noise, 55 decibels. That, again, the cubic feet per minute over 5-year operating cost, 0.15. We're going to look at things that are 3 to 4 times more efficient, so I would not recommend this one. Let's look at the Koei AP1512. This is the Wirecutter from New York Times recommended air filter. So again, we get about 138 cubic feet per minute. That's decent. 4 air changes in a room. 46 decibels. That's a reasonable noise volume. And cubic feet per minute over 5-year operating cost, 0.2. So we see it's a little more efficient than those previous ones, but still, we're going to look at things that are 3 times more efficient, more bang for your buck. So this is an okay option. One other thing, this has an ionizer on it, which sometimes can put off ozone. I would not recommend buying units with extra frills like ionizers or UV or anything that you don't really understand. I would skip it. If you have this model, turn the ionizer off. But this is an okay model. It is highly recommended by a bunch of places, but we can do better. The Winix 5500, this is another highly recommended model. This is a good example of noise being an issue. So I'm only recommending that you get this if you run it on medium speed, because that's 45 decibels. Any speed higher than this is going to be over 50. It's going to be loud and annoying, and it's kind of a shame to buy this pretty big unit and only be able to run it on medium speed, getting 3.3 air changes in your big living room, paying $160. Look at that efficiency, 0.13. That's actually worse than all the ones we've looked at so far. Now let's look at a Levoit Core 300. Levoit is probably one of my recommendations for mainstream models. It was on that Amazon front page. They've been paying influencers recently. It's a reasonable choice. So the 300, again, I would only run it on speed 2 because any speed above that is too loud, but you would get, I think there's a typo here, you would get a little over 2 air changes an hour with this one. So you'd probably need multiple units to keep that big living room clean. Efficiency 0.19, not great, but you're only paying $100 for this, so this is an okay option. The Levoit 200S is actually a little more efficient per dollar. Because you can run it at the max setting, it will be 48 decibels. That's a little on the loud side, but still I would say acceptable. We can see now the efficiency, that cubic feet per minute over 5-year operating cost is 0.3. That's the highest number we've seen so far. The 400 by Levoit is also more efficient than the 300. So I'd say with Levoits, I would recommend them. They're easy, simple. You can easily find replacement filters. Just the 200 is the most efficient, then the 400, then the 300, depending on how much money you have to spend and the size of your room. Now here's a company that I'd love to recommend, Smart Air Filters. They're a B Corp social business. They make very simple, straightforward models, but the numbers aren't coming out as well as I would like them to highly recommend it. For this one, if you run it on high speed, it's probably going to be annoyingly loud at 52 decibels, so I would run it at medium speed. You get 4.5 air changes in your living room. That's pretty good. That's almost that 6 we're looking for, but you're paying $280, and that efficiency is at 0.19. Let's look at another one of their models, the Smart Air Blast Mini MK2. This is kind of the unit of choice for people like Clean Air Club, people that let people borrow air filters or rent them out. It's really sturdy. It has wheels. It costs $600, but it can give you 13 air changes in that living room. It's pretty powerful. 436 cubic feet per minute, by far the strongest we've seen so far. And that efficiency number, 0.23, we're getting a little more efficient here. But noise, it's at the higher range, 49 decibels. This is more of an industrial use, or maybe a school, a gym, cafeteria, that kind of thing. Now let's look at Clean Air Kits. This is one of my favorite companies. Look at the noise, 38 to 37 decibels. These things, you can barely hear them. Look at the cubic feet per minute, 410 to 310. I'm looking at the luggable and the end table in a couple different configurations. That's why there's ranges here. But very, very powerful. 12 to 9 air changes in a living room. That's really, really good. That's twice or 1.5 times the 6 air changes we're looking for. You do have to drop about $300 to $250 up front to buy the units and get the filters. They also have to be assembled. If you want them pre-assembled, they're more expensive. But just in terms of pure efficiency, look at that cubic feet per minute over 5-year operating ratio, 0.59 to 0.46. That's the highest we've seen so far. So these things are just incredibly efficient if you have the money to put out up front. They're a little less rugged and sturdy than those Smart Air units we looked at, whereas something like the NuKit Tempest is very similar to Clean Air Kits and sort of somewhere between Clean Air Kits and Smart Air, where this has a really, really durable metal frame. You do have to buy some additional parts and put it together. So with both Clean Air Kits and NuKit, if you want to pay the cheapest prices, you got to be able to put it together. But look at this one. We have 38 decibels, very, very quiet. It can clean 280 cubic feet per minute, give you 8 air changes in the living room for a total cost of $292. That efficiency number, 0.5, very, very, very good. And as a frame of reference, here's a Corsi Rosenthal box. Cubic feet per minute, around 450, maybe even higher. You get 13 air changes in a room. It only costs $80. That efficiency number, 0.73, is just unbeatable. But it's going to be loud. See that, 55 decibels. So I really wish I could make the Corsi Rosenthal box work, but I had one in my apartment, and it was too loud, and I took it apart. So there are some settings just for, rapid response, wildfires. This is the best, cheapest air filter you can possibly get, but I'd probably recommend some of the other options we looked at. Now, randomly, this model is just the best out there if you can find it. It's often sold out. It sells as the Tautronics AP003 or the Laurel 420, the Lego air purifier. And the selling point here is the noise. It's really, really quiet on the second speed setting. It gives you almost 4 air changes an hour for $80. You get 2 of these to clean a massive space for $160. I have a bunch of these. These are one of my favorites.